Hello, and welcome back to Business Sparks with Val. I'm glad that you're here. Today, it's going to be a very personal episode. So bear with me. I'm going to share my path to entrepreneurship, what I would do differently if I were to start my business today, knowing what I know, so that you can take my experience to do better than me, basically. So yeah, let's get to it. You're listening to Business Sparks with Val, the podcast for expats and internationals who are done overthinking and are ready to build their business on their own terms. I'm your host, Valeria Kadelski, business coach and founder of Spark Coaching with Val. Each week, I will bring you tips, learnings, and honest conversation so you can build with more clarity, more confidence, and a lot less second guessing. Let's get started. So if you know me or if you've been following me for a while, you can see that my career has been in the software as a service industry, spanning across like 7 years. And primarily all my work experience has been abroad, so not in my home country, which is Italy. I started with a role in sales, and that was my first experience with full-time work. Before then, I had some internships within marketing. I also, not many of you know this, but when I was a student, actually, I took 4 months in LA where I used to work in sales in an art gallery. Yes, I know. You will wonder, like, what? What was that about? I actually, at the very beginning of my career, really wanted to get into the art world. But to be honest, after I moved abroad, reality kind of hit, and I realized that only locals could get access to these type of jobs, and there were many of them. So anyway, after just a few internships here and there in marketing and communication with different startups, I landed this role in sales in tech. So you may wonder, but Val, that seems like a pretty big jump. And I agree with you. I knew nothing about sales and about the tech world, but here I was. So I actually found out that I really love to work with people and I really loved sales. And that was the start of 7 years career in commercial roles across different type of organizations, across different type of departments in the software industry. I am really grateful for those years because I learned so much about sales, marketing, dealing with clients, which is what I use so much today in my work as a coach. And that's also all the expertise that I can then translate with my clients when they start building their business. Back to the path to entrepreneurship. At some point throughout all of these, changing companies a few times and roles and whatnot, I started feeling that I kind of found myself in this path by chance. And it is indeed true, as I already explained to you. And it wasn't really something that I intentionally chose. And as I said, it turned out to be very good for me, but it sort of started feeling a little bit like that it wasn't enough. And those feelings grew over the span of the last 2-3 years that I was working in the industry, where I started to feel more and more frustrated about the lack of ownership in my work and the type of impact that I wanted to create in people's lives that wasn't quite there for me. So that's where I naturally started to also work internally with my team on things like career development and performance plans and basically enabling people to get skills and how to progress in their career, because that was something that really spoke to me and that I really cared about. Until a point where in the company there had been a lot of changes, and I just was feeling that like that was the moment where I felt the most distant from the business itself. And I got the opportunity there and then to decide what I wanted to do next, because somehow, and probably you can relate to it, I've been in this sort of rut and this thought process for already 2 years. And in the meantime, mind me, I had all kinds of ideas in terms of what I want to do for my own business that spanned from becoming an artist, becoming a wedding planner, I considered starting a consultancy within customer success to be independent. And then coaching sort of came on my table after, again, working with this kind of career development internally. And because a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, had done a course. And so I got to learn more about the whole coaching world. But again, there was a moment in the company where there was a lot of change and a new boss came in. And after talking about, voicing my concerns around my role, she was very clear and upfront with me and said, look, I don't see this going forward within the way that you would want it to be. And so at that point I said, okay, you know what? Fair enough. I appreciate it. But then I don't want to do this anymore. We actually managed to come to an agreement where I got fired officially. And that meant that I had then the next 4 months covered financially to figure out, okay, now what? And I can tell you that was both exhilarating, but also quite confusing and scary because I knew that I wanted to dive deeper into coaching. And that's when I decided, okay, you know what? I'm just going to get a certification and I'm going to learn all about it and I'm going to become really good at this. And then I will see what I want to do with it. If I want to build a business or just maybe find a role that has this as part of it. Because I found out that coaching in terms of partnering with people, helping them achieve their own goals, and just being that supportive cheerleader type of person in someone else's life was exactly who I had been across all my previous roles, across my entire career. And so it was just so fitting for my personality that I definitely wanted to explore it further. But as I said in a previous episode, there is a huge gap between understanding that that's what you're passionate about and going and making a business out of it. So that's what I had to figure out next. So in those next 4 months, that was 2 years ago now, I started getting certified. And I think I realized pretty quickly that all the knowledge that I was getting out of this coaching course, was very much about the craft, but not about building a business. And there was nothing about building a business that I knew already how to do because I had never had my own business. And so that's where the, let's say, struggle came to be, and also where the fun part came to be. Back then, I didn't realize that I needed someone to guide me through this thought process because I thought, well, I mean, how hard can that be? I'm just going to figure it out as I figured out everything before. And I mean, let me tell you, yes, I eventually figured it out. But if I was to do this all again today, I would immediately have invested in a business coach myself. But again, back then, I didn't know. And I think that for me, the first few months, I was extremely naive, to be honest with you, because I was kind of the Lulu in the terms of, oh yeah, of course, I'm certified now, I'm a coach, I'm just gonna get clients, right? I'm just gonna put it out there on LinkedIn and get clients. And to some degree, that kind of happened. And so that fed my delusion even more because I started posting on LinkedIn. And that worked only because I was at the beginning offering free coaching sessions to anyone who wanted coaching about anything. I then kept doing that and I just finally found the courage to start charging for my coaching. And let me tell you, the first clients I charged them so little money. And that was just, again, if I could go back there and told myself that, I would be like, do not put your prices so low because that's going to anchor yourself lower already. And that's going to be harder. What I figured out, and it took me a few months to figure this out, is that, well, first of all, I really wanted to work with internationals because that's always been a category of people that I can deeply relate with because that's part of my own experience. And I understand the nuances of what it means to start again in your career, with a business in general, in a new country when you don't have the network and you don't have the same kind of support. But when I started with general career transitions. So I would help anyone that wanted to change, for example, industry or role. So not so much about entrepreneurship. And then the more I worked with clients, the more clients came to me that actually had this desire to become an entrepreneur and to have their own business. And to be honest, I realized that that's what I was most excited about, helping people starting their own thing, because that's exactly what I did. And so fast forward to today, that's the kind of people that I work with, and that's what I specialized in. A couple of things that I wasted my time doing at the very beginning of my journey that I really urge you not to waste your time on. First of all, I spent way too much time coming up with my visual identity. I mean, it's important to have a visual identity, but I literally spent days and days trying to figure out what my name should be, what my colors should be. Waste of time. Waste of time, because the first thing that you should do when you start your own business is find clients. And trust me, clients don't necessarily care a lot about your visual identity. That can come afterwards. The second thing that I wasted a lot of time doing, believe it or not, was a podcast. I know. I had lots of fun with it. And if you don't know this, I used to have another podcast 2 years ago that I started around this time, by the way. And I used to be focused on conversations and interviews with friends and ex-colleagues that were all international or expats and going through their own career stories and learnings that they had in terms of career transitions, which now that you heard it, you probably are thinking, but Val, it kind of makes sense based on what you said before. It's not about the topics or the podcast per se. It also taught me that I could actually do a podcast. It just wasn't focused. It wasn't bringing me any clients or awareness or anything like that. It was more like a fun project. And in hindsight, again, back to what I should have done instead of wasting time on a podcast at that stage, finding clients, talking to people, being online, starting conversations, focusing on partnerships or getting workshop opportunities. That's the difference. I'm not saying that doing a podcast is bad. I mean, I'm literally doing one. But back then, at that stage, not the best thing. The other thing was I tried to do everything all at once from the very beginning, which is another mistake that I see a lot of people do because they see established people that have been in their business for like a few years even, having funnels, having completely like newsletters and marketing and so on. You are one person and you're just starting out. And if you don't have a background in marketing and sales like I did, it's going to be so difficult for you to learn everything at once. So you need to start small and just pick literally one main channel that you're going to focus on. So if I were to start again, I would have probably still picked like just LinkedIn and just doubled down on it. So just try and understand where are the people you want to work with. Are they on LinkedIn? Great. Double down on LinkedIn. Forget about everything else until you have a solid lead acquisition strategy. And I'm not saying funnel, I'm saying strategy, meaning, okay, I'm going to reach out to 10 people every day or every week or whatever. And then you build based on that. So now as I record this, and I didn't tell you this, but it's exactly 2 years since my last day in my tech job. And it's crazy to think about that. And that's, I think, why it's fitting that I record this podcast today. And you'll probably hear this a few weeks after that. But it's because I really tried to remember what it felt like that day. And I remember I was in a sort of like ecstatic feeling of, oh my God, this is exciting. I felt relieved. I felt sad to leave my colleagues. I felt a bit afraid. I sort of had planned my financial runway, but other than that, I mean, it was just to barely, stay afloat, but I didn't have any business plan. I wasn't quite sure what exactly my strategies to find clients were. I did not know what my marketing should be about. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. And this is why now that I work with clients, I am very, very focused on asking all the difficult questions that I wish someone asked me back then. When you are just so high on the emotions around, oh my God, I finally did it. I took the leap. But you haven't figured out all the stuff that comes after, which is the important stuff. And mind me, I could not be happier to have done that choice, no matter how maybe badly planned it was, because I think I wouldn't have been where I am today. And I'm sure that if I stayed in that job, eventually that sense of frustration and disconnect would have grown even more. And that would have affected me in ways that were beyond how I showed up at work. That was already affecting me how I showed up in my personal life. And I'm not saying that the business path has been easy, but I don't regret it for one single moment. And I think this is exactly what I'm trying to tell you with this is there is no single good way on starting, on getting into entrepreneurship. I actually always recommend that if you can start it on the side, because then you don't have all these financial pressure on you. But whatever works for you, whatever works to give you that sort of push to get it started. Because I know that too many of us just stay in this state of inaction for too long. And that's really what erodes your confidence, erodes your passion. And that's what we need. We need confidence and we need passion to make this work, right? What I wanted to share with you with this episode is that there are a few things that you should be focusing on in the first 90 days of starting your own thing. And they do not include starting a podcast, focusing too much on your visual identity, and wanting to do everything at once. But it involves going out there, talking to your potential clients, understand who you're for, understand where they are, and just be there and just have this conversation and start there. That's all you need to do. And I hope that listening to my story inspires you to, again, know that you will figure things out along the way. You don't have to know everything at once, but it is very important that you do get support from someone who's been there, because it will save you a lot of headache. So I'm always open to have that conversation with you. So if you're ready to explore that, I will link the link to book a call with me in the show notes. It's just a short call to understand where you're at and see if we're a fit and how we move forward from there. And I look forward to talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to Business Sparks with Val. I hope today's episode sparked something for you. You can find all my resources, book a free clarity call, or explore working together at sparkcoachingwithval.com. And if this episode was useful, leave a review or share it with someone who's building their own thing abroad. Until next time, your business is waiting. Go make it real.